Jeff Bezos was at a AI conference this weekend, and he called AI an absolute bubble. And then Paul Tudor Jones was on CNBC this morning, and he says we're one stage away from a blow off the top moment because he thinks AI is a massive bubble too.
The economy sucks though, and everybody knows that.
It's essentially juiced up right now. You have a billionaire president who's friends with Wall Street, and their whole mandate, they campaigned on it's not for Wall Street, it's for Main Street. But in reality, it's all about Wall Street.
All right, guys, we are back with another Stock Sharks podcast. We're just going to shoot the shit of what happened over the past, let's say, 72 hours and a little bit of later last week. Let's start with the big news today. It was AMD and OpenAI. Jerry, you want to take it?
Yeah, OpenAI got a 10% stake in AMD following sort of the what I like to call the circle jerk of AI right now. A lot of the same companies are investing and buying revenue. We talked about this on the last podcast in terms of the circulation of revenue and the revenue fronting that's happening with these companies. I think it's a sign, like it's never really organic things, was showing that the AI business model, especially the chip makers, could potentially be overvalued as the chips are too expensive for a more broad audience of customers. And that could essentially show a slowdown in the markets with those 7 companies leading it. But every stock I'm in, I just bought a stock last week. I did no research on. I just bought it because it had AI in the name, and it's up 7% today. So you can't really stop this freight train that the market's going on off this AI sort of circular, this revenue pool and that these companies are doing. But it's eventually going to stop someday. But when is sort of the question. So I don't really have too much of a negative or positive opinion on it. Just kind of taking it where it goes.
When do you think OpenAI will likely go public at this point?
They don't need to go public.
You know,
it's just like Stripe, right? It's just like Stripe. Everyone's been talking about the Stripe IPO for the last 10 years. It's never happened. They don't really need to do a public offering. A lot of the private markets, right? I'm pretty sure you've heard recently one of the big trends in finance right now is private capital, right? Private lending, and a lot of companies. We're seeing a lot more companies go private for that reason, is because they're tired of playing the Wall Street earnings game, the quarterly earnings game. And that's one of the main reasons why the administration stepped in and wanted to make it to 2 earnings reports per year. So private capital is huge right now. Is there a bubble in there? Most likely, potential, but it's happening, right? So that's the thing, is does OpenAI need to go public? No, and I don't think they will. Same with Stripe. Why a company like IKEA, massive company, never went public. 7-Eleven's public in Japan, but they're a massive company. I know you're bearish on 7-Eleven based off of what we talked about a few months ago. But the best companies stay private. OpenAI's business model also too isn't friendly to be a publicly traded company right now. With the revenues that they have and the valuation that they have, it would most likely be cut on earnings the first couple of reports. And then another company to add into this is that it's on their Series G or Series H of fundraising would be Databricks, right? If you remember Databricks, right? The AI company, more of a commercial friendly company, similar to Palantir, but more commercial versus government spending. So yeah, the best companies stay private for a reason, because they have to answer to a select few shareholders, right? So yeah, I don't think OpenAI does an IPO anytime soon.
I think they do an IPO in the next 3 to 5 years and cash out. I think they're going to go public. That's my personal opinion. Like just based on previous companies this large, the shareholders want to see an exit, and I do understand Sam Altman, having control and the rest of the board, and he almost lost control in the past. But I think they'll go public in the next 3 to 5. But at $5 billion valuation now, what are they going to open up at? This is real cool.
Well, that part gets tricky. Who's there to buy it when majority of the institutions have already invested in their later rounds? So just to play devil's advocate to your thing about founders or VC investors cashing out, a lot of them already have. That's why you see those reports of like those former OpenAI founding employees are now worth millions and millions of dollars because they sold their shares in secondary markets. That's essentially the IPO in so many ways. So I don't know. I don't focus too much time there, Also because it's like, what trade is there to be made on OpenAI or even Stripe going public? The valuations are going to be so rich.
Right. That's true. In regards to the markets right now, you have gold all-time highs, Bitcoin all-time highs, stock market all-time highs. Where's this cash coming from? It's definitely not retail, or is it?
Well, the cash is coming from, and the reason why gold is so high is because there's a never-ending printing of money, right? The from 2022 to 2023, maybe a little bit into 2024, was there a pausing in the printing of money from a policy standpoint in terms of the Federal Reserve and the rest of the central banks around the world? But as we witnessed in the last 2 years, the U.S. just started, but the other central banks have been cutting interest rates, and it's essentially a cheap capital economy, like cheap money policy. That's a better term to use, is a loose money policy. And that's essentially what's been driving the returns in those 7 companies in the S&P 500 and why there's so much cash. Now, the reason why gold is going up is because of that easy money, loose money policy. When those policies get enacted, essentially the administration currently right now is tanking the dollar to drive the stock market. And that's what you're saying.
Right.
With Bitcoin, I'm not too educated on the prospects of it. I like to look at Bitcoin as sort of, it leads all markets because it trades 24/7, right? So like if you want to know how the markets most likely will open on a Monday, you could have a good idea by looking at Bitcoin on Sunday evening. Not always 100% accurate, but just because it trades 24/7, you can kind of get a good read on where things are going for that said week or said month. But yeah, with the easy money policy is essentially like, I look at it like a heroin addict, right? Like when you have a society right now that is literally addicted to lower interest rates, not endless cash printing supply. We saw interest rates get raised not much to 5% for 2 years and 1 year of no money printing, and everyone lost their mind and everyone was begging for lower interest rates for the past 2 years. So that's why I look at it as like a heroin addict, right? It's like you can't just go cold turkey right off of a huge amount of binging, which would be the cheap money. But once you start to slow it down, you'll see the withdrawal process, and that's essentially a recession. So we haven't seen that yet because it just keeps going and it hasn't stopped.
But then you have the other asset where it's real estate taking the pounding due to the higher rates and due to there's just in general there's not money going into real estate right now across North America. Well, as they lower rates, where do you see? Well, first off, I'm assuming you would say, well, as they lower rates, gold should go down, is what you're saying here? Or are we
No,
going
higher. We'll go higher. Well, in the long term, right? Like surely you'll see rotations in and out daily. If you're tracking it from a day-by-day tick, you're going to have corrections and whatnot. But if you're talking end of the year, 2-3 years from now, if they keep printing money the way they do, gold has nowhere but to go higher.
What's going to get is the real question.
That's literally the question I've been trying to ask since April, because like I mentioned last podcast, I thought April was the breaking point with all the confusion from tariffs. But that wasn't it. I mean, we're in a government shutdown right now and the stock market's tripping.
The economy sucks though, and everybody knows that.
Yeah. But it's essentially juiced up right now. You have a billionaire president who's friends with Wall Street, and their whole mandate, essentially their mandate, right? They campaigned on it's not for Wall Street, it's for Main Street. But in reality, it's all about Wall Street.
Dude, the rich is getting. This is the problem with the rich is getting richer to a next level right now. And that's not saying like we're in the stock market, we're happy, right? But I'm saying if you look at the everyday person, even me as the real estate guy, like, dude, I'm struggling, right? And I have no problem admitting that shit. And other people are struggling too because I hear it, and you hear it from people. And the bottom line right now, I don't think there's been a time where in the past, like, say, 7 months where the rich is really getting rich, right? And Main Street's feeling it, right?
And I don't think it's going to slow down, right? I mean, it's like, and that's the funny thing why a lot of people don't like to pay attention to politics and always just say, pay attention to the market, pay attention to the market. Well, the pendulum has to swing, right? There's going to be only so much. I mean, I was just watching a video. There's some farmer in Iowa was complaining about how they got tariffs raised on them. And then the countries who the administration just gave money to, Argentina just made an agreement to buy soybeans from the Chinese.
Right.
Right. So there has to be a pendulum swing, right? And it's like what you see in New York right now with the current leader for the mayor, the Zoran guy. From an economical standpoint, You're like, this guy's horrible. But from a social standpoint, it makes a lot of sense why a lot of people are looking that way. When someone steps in, it may not be the right answer by saying the government should take control of grocery stores, but if, as an everyday person who doesn't pay attention to the market each day, and every day you go to the grocery store and your beef, your bread, everything keeps going up in price, you're going to vote somewhere else. And that's essentially what can stop the market, a type of AOC becoming president type of person, something like that. But I think the Democratic Party is so federally weak, just like the Conservative Party here in Canada, is that people are just going to stick with what it is until something major happens. But it's like, but you go back to the Roman Empire days, right? They put the gladiator stuff on. As long as you have entertainment, bread, and wine, no one's going to complain. So that's kind of what's happening. I was reading a good message board today on people talking about when does the music stop? Exactly what we're talking about in terms of AI names, right? Because everyone woke up and saw AMD up 20% this morning because of the news, and essentially it's a nothing burger of a news. There's no new cash flow, new cash being injected. It's an agreement. Sure, OpenAI gets 10% stake of the company, but it's essentially most likely going to be share offered, diluted by more AMD shareholders for essentially a one-day stock bump. And the music doesn't stop. And when does it stop? We don't know.
Got it. Interesting. What's going to have that object? Do you think going on lower rates again in October? Seems like it.
Well, yeah, but based off of if you look at the real economy data, consumer spending, the labor market, everything's down, except what's up is stock market. Cool. Everything market continues to go up, but all like you're mentioning, real world economic data is going down. But right when the new data was supposed to be released, much like a certain other files that were supposed to be released, they shut down the government.
So when the government opens, are they just going to wait for the next job report? Or they can't just release it right away? I'm not too sure about that on my end.
They're going to have to report it, but how they do it is no one knows. It's just like, I read a funny tweet. There's like some guy was like, Trump's literally going to rig the numbers and you're bearish, right? It's just like, it makes a lot of sense when you put it that way, but it's also like, this can't go on forever. Something has to give, like something that has to be a major blow up somewhere like 08. There has to be something like 99 or even 87 where you have Black Monday. I wasn't born then, but it happened and I studied it. So yeah, markets are like an ultimate, a lot of people say it's a weighing scale. I like to look at it as like the ultimate arbiter of truth, right? It's like, yes, there's a lot of people drunk on success right now. But that eventually ends, and whoever's left caught holding that bag, right, will lose out. And this is sort of like where generational moves can be made, because there's going to be some companies that are really, really on the top right now, but they're going to get caught swimming naked because they're way too levered. And there's going to be a lot of companies who make the right decisions at the right time with not too much leverage and become the new top dog. If you look at like how OpenAI's dominance for the last 5 years, it kind of reminds me of that TV show Silicon Valley. If you ever watched it, once the company got successful, they started knocking off the company that was there before. And that's what AI has done to software. But now the real question is AI just new fancy software? Right. Is it something that's revolutionary, game changing, or is it just a massive bubble? I'm on the fence on both sides because I could see both sides. I'm on the side that physical AI will be huge. Robotics, self-driving cars, self-driving trucks, and AI and semiconductors are strongly needed in that. But in terms of like the chatbot stuff and the entertainment, I don't see much of a market there. I know a lot of people are saying AI is going to be like the new thing for entertainment in terms of streaming. Once Netflix and Warner Brothers and all these companies get in the fray of it, or Disney, sure. But is it really going to be as good as, say, watching Game 7 of an NBA Finals or watching a college football game or an NHL or MLB game? AI can't replicate those things. And those are huge money market. And like we talked about the last podcast, advertisement. That's what drives a lot of business. So I'm bearish on the AI software, like in terms of like the chatbots and the videos and what people call slop, kind of like what Meta is really focusing on a lot right now, which is kind of discouraging as someone who's a big fan of Meta and Zuckerberg. But I think physical AI, like physical robots, self-driving cars, those are huge GDP boosters and huge things that I think can continue to drive the market. I mean, literally every stock that we have mentioned in Stock Search this year, especially this quarter, has either had AI or robotics attached to it within its name or in its description. And they're doing very well. Like this one stock we're in today is up 14% just today because they put their 1,000th delivery robot on the road. Another one we're in is they do software and semiconductor testing, but also they have a robotics branch and they're connected to Amazon. And that stock's up 46% in the past month, right? And then, like I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, I bought a stock without little to no research. I literally just saw on the newswire a bunch of institutions that I follow, from Soros Fund to ARK Invest and a few others, took 5%, 10% stakes in this company after their SPAC listing. I looked into what they did. I said, okay, yeah, this is a smart buy because it's down 30% from its listing and it's up 10% today. It just hit the 10% mark as we started the podcast. So yes, it's a bubble when you're buying names just because of what it's called. And like I just said, I didn't do much fundamental work on it. I'm going to have a report out this week for members, but it was the FOMO is there, right? We're a huge driving force of FOMO happening in the market. And it's interesting because Jeff Bezos was at a AI conference this weekend and he called AI an absolute bubble, like an absolute bubble. He says there's companies of 6 people getting $1 billion of funding with no product. He's like, that's a bubble. And then Paul Tudor Jones was on CNBC this morning and he says we're one stage away from a blow off the top moment in the markets before the correction starts, because he thinks AI is a massive bubble too. Those are 2 guys who called the market right in 2021 and much more times in the past. I'm just giving a more recent time. But once Jeff Bezos started unloading shares of 2021 and a few other big tech heavyweights, and Paul Tudor Jones was as well mentioning how bearish he was based on interest rates going higher. I think we might be in for that moment soon, potentially. But like I mentioned all those things before, that's all the things to be bullish for. So I'm kind of ranting here, but
Now, one of the things I was bringing, we just recently did a reel and a video on bank acquisitions and mergers, and man, did you call that? We got Fifth Third buying up Comrica for $10.9 billion this morning. And I was just thinking, I woke up this morning, saw that news, obviously the AMD headlines reviews, and I was like, damn, JR called this one. How did you know, when did you notice that banks were going to continue to merge? What was the pinpoint signs where you started seeing things change in the banking world?
So with that sector, I'm no expert on it, but it's a lot. It makes a lot of sense if you like the game Monopoly, right? And I'm not calling the banking sector a monopoly, but it essentially is. And I mean, in Canada, we have the ultimate monopoly banking sector because there's only 5 players allowed to play, and they're bank stopped by the government if they ever fail. We'll see if that day ever happens. But in America, there's too many banks. I mean, BMO is a bank in Canada. They have so many regional banks in America right now. They're selling off assets. They're selling off banks, regional banks. So if you look at like a game of Monopoly, right? You build your 1 greenhouse, 2, 3, 4, then you put a hotel on it, right? Well, that's kind of like the banking sector in my view, is that there's only so much you can grow in one regional area, right? And then there's going to be a bigger fish, a bigger dog who's eventually going to want to get into that region and they're going to buy you out. And that's sort of been the game plan. And what was holding that up was obviously the Silicon Valley Bank that went under in 2022?
Yeah, with Peter Thiel getting his money out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's the Silicon Valley bank run. We shouldn't even call it a bank failure. It's a bank heist, a legal bank heist in so many ways. But that's essentially what stalled it in a bit, because everyone was now going and looking at all the regionals and be like, whose balance sheets are in trouble? And my guess is those big firms did those research and they saw who needed essentially a buyout before the rubber met the road. I'm not saying all these banks were in trouble, not like a zero heads doomsday guy, but every bank's built differently, different type of risk, different type of loans. And there are certain ones who have good assets in terms of their regional placing and in terms of where they could expand their clientele. So if Colorado makes a lot of sense for one bank, they'll go buy the regional bank there. So it's essentially like a game of Monopoly.
Where are we at with, obviously we saw the government. I know we're doing a few reels and videos on this. So if you guys aren't following us on Instagram and YouTube, please give us on Facebook, which is growing really fast. Please give us a follow on all 3 pages. But where are we at? We saw the government take their, which I'm all for sovereign wealth funds. I seen what happened overseas, saw what happened with Norway, saw what happened with the Saudis. With Intel, now we have this rumor piling up in the company Critical Metals. What else how many companies do you see the government getting involved with, and do you think this Critical Metals deal will go through? And why is it
Well,
bullet?
do you see their chart today for that stock?
I
Oh
think it
my
was up
God.
40% or something, wasn't it? Over the
Yeah, well, right before you started the pod, it fell. Now it's only up 22%, from 16 to 9. Unreal news. Anyways, but with that, it makes a lot of sense if, like, Trump's a businessman, right? Like, he there's some things he says makes no sense, and there's some things that he does make absolute sense. So you got a country that's 37 trillion in debt, about to be 40, probably 42 by the time his administration's done in 3 years. You're going to have to find some ways to pay off that debt. And one way to do that is to make critical investments in things that the government's critically going to invest in. So why go into a huge amount of taxpayer debt by giving Intel money to do whatever they want by building chips? If they fail, that taxpayers on the hook. If they make it, Intel, if they're successful, Intel shareholders get most of the returns. Why shouldn't the government have a stake in ownership of that success? That's my view on it. It makes a lot of sense. People make too much of a big deal of it, calling it socialism. That's not socialism. That's not communism. Communism is literally buying the entire company or taking mass control, firing everyone on the board, and putting your family members, installing them as CEO, and whatnot. So and running the company to the ground, like what happened in Venezuela with the PSVB. I don't know. I'm not an oil trader, so I'm not trying to act like it, but that's just a very simple one. So the government stakes, they make sense. If you look at the companies that they're investing in it's a supply chain for materials, supply chain for semiconductors. If we believe in robotics and AI as the future, then yeah, it makes perfect amount of sense.
Makes sense.
Now, it would be scary if Trump took control of, like, Hilton and was like renaming it Trump and Resorts on Hilton. Then that would be a problem.
I get it. Take over the Marriott. In regards to, there's a lot of things, and I agree with you. Like, I'm not really a fan of a lot that's happening in the world. I know a lot of people are kind of the same way, but there are a lot of good things that I could say that might stick around even with a new administration 3 years down the line, whether it's on the Democratic side or Republican side. And that includes, I would say, the sovereign wealth fund he's trying to do, and then along with the tariffs, which there's just too much fucking money now, right? In regards to, like, kind of letting this go. What are some things that you see where, like, they need change? There's going to be changes regardless of 3 years from down the road where the administration's kind of messing up right now. Besides
that will get reversed.
Besides the one country we don't want to talk about to get banned, but, like, other things, like, I don't want to go in the political geopolitics perspective, but more on the financial end.
Oh, that's a tough one. So you're saying stuff that will stick around or stuff that...
Well, I already think the tariffs and then along with, these type of investments will stick around.
Well, the problem with the sovereign wealth fund is, like, if you look at, like, other sovereign wealth funds around the world, they're essentially, like, backed by profits from oil. You know what I mean?
They are. Like, Norway, Saudi. Yeah, you're right.
Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all those places. It's all backed by oil, right? So it's tough with the United States because it's a massive country. And to have a sovereign wealth fund so late in the game, like, I get it, but, like, I'd also, like, you already have massive pension funds that are going to need help and going to need bailouts. There's so many other things. So I don't know if that is one that will stick. The tariffs, I could see them removing just as, like, a say to face. We don't know what that guy was doing. We're all friendly here, right? You know what I mean? Even though some of the tariffs do make sense, things that won't stick around. It's a very, 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 very
still
tough
early
one.
It's still early in his first year.
Yeah,
right?
There's still 3 more years left.
Yeah. So I'm not even that. A lot of people. I don't like judging politicians until, like, it gives us some time to.
I judge them all. They all suck.
But I like, I always try to give the benefit of the doubt, give them a couple of years to kind of see where things are going, and then see if some of these things, turn into something positive, especially something like the tariffs where, where, like I said, mainstream's kind of getting affected right now, small business getting affected, but maybe, it does work, right? Maybe things do go, maybe America, becomes quite wealthy off it.
Well, it's like Obamacare, right? A lot of people thought that would get removed when Obama left, and it became the Affordable Care Act. It's still there. Right, like this Trump RX thing, maybe it'll get changed to government RX when he's gone. Like, I don't know. Like, there's nothing ever changes. It's all kind of the same. Like, I've been around and paying a lot of attention to politics and the market since like 09, 11 when I was in college. And nothing's really changed. Like, some of the roads near my house still suck.
Yeah.
You know what
Well,
I
I
mean?
think
The
that's
same
more of a.
telephone
I think that's
poles.
more of a Canadian slash local Winnipeg issue,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's true. I've been to the States a few times, but at the end of the day, I mean, people and things usually stay the same. You just essentially want to be on the right trade and the right side of things so that you could change your life, right? That's really the important thing, right? Like, are you timing the right? It doesn't matter what your views are. It doesn't matter about where you are in life. You just want to make sure that you're positioned for the right things at the right time and to exit at the right time, not exit too
Just
early. Like,
it is
I'm
kind of mind blowing right now with in regards to, like, a lot of these AI companies, they started 12 months ago and now worth billions of dollars. It's mind blowing for me to just think that
Well, we've seen it before. Internet bubble,
right,
the
.com flop.
fast bubble. Like, there's all types of, like, that's the thing with the markets is it's gonna have bubbles. It's gonna have bubble pops, and a few there you'll get a few companies who emerge that are solid, and some that are not. Right? Like, I sent you that one reel we did like a year ago on the company that was essentially DoorDash before DoorDash. Right? Like, that was in '99. Like, a lot of these ideas aren't new, especially like how these AI companies are circulating their revenue and circulating their equity ownership. It's not a new tactic. A lot of companies done this before. It's one of the main reasons why the Japanese stock market was essentially frozen for 40 years, because they did all that in the 80s and they didn't have a positive return in their stock market till 2022, 2023. Could you imagine that? Invested in a retirement and just did nothing but lose money for 40 years? Brutal. And that could happen here. I don't think it will, because we have too many dynamic companies, and well, in America, not here. Canada's just messed up on all sorts of cases, but we no need to talk about that. I don't want to get shadow banned, but with the case of the States, it's such a dynamic country. It's such a dynamic, unless like a civil war breaks out, which it won't. That won't happen. There's too much football games going on for people to even pay attention to politics. Like, there's so much things going on that there's so much people that, like, how much people do you really think no government shut down,
No,
right?
I
You know
feel
what I
like
mean?
nobody really. The thing is, we follow it so much, interconnected with politics and finance, and you got then Twitter will show you the algos of the same people liking the same shit, following the same stuff. But in general, I was with some friends in New York, asking them like, "Hey, what do you think of the mayor race?" And like, we don't pay attention to that, and I
Yeah,
still don't have
exactly,
hope. So
exactly,
and
exactly.
people live their life day by day, and I think that's actually important because before we got heavy into markets and before I started getting blasted in real estate, I started paying attention to more politics based on what's going to happen with the rates. And man, is it a disease and just depressing. And it's just like, I need to just shut this shit off. Like, Twitter has become such a toxic place because of the algos and like seeing this stuff. And now it's happening in other things. And it's just like, I
It rots your
gather it.
brain.
And it's just like, I just like seeing, like, even just like, just clicking CNN.com to see the headlines, you're like, man, like, show me like some positivity today,
Or you
because
know what
like
they
the
say,
world
right?
isn't this
Pol-
shitty.
you know what they say, right? Politics is sports for ugly people.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's some up the ass people in politics, that's for sure.
Look at other companies who have failed, right? It goes down fast, and they do not want to lose their top of the food chain, right? And all it takes is one malinvestment, one wrong move, and they lose their dominance. And it could happen. And that's what they are fearful of. That's why Zuckerberg's offering $100 million contracts, is because they don't want to lose their top at the top of the food chain. And just makes total sense. But now the real thing is what real life applications are going to be winners out of this. And that is what we're living through right now. And that's why I'm so bullish on the physical robotics part of it, is because that will be quick, and not quick in terms of changing the world, but quick in terms of showing real world results in terms of GDP, real world results in changing of the norm that we know, compared to where the big ones already happened with software. I think the next move has to be either physical or robotics, and I'm bearish on wearables. I was really bullish on wearables, but I'm very, very bearish on them now, because I just don't think people will change.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, glasses thing's been tried way too much. Too many fucking.
And I think people are lazy. People will hire a robot to clean their yard and do things like that, or have at football stadiums, robotic kiosks where you don't have to hire a student to work there, things like that. People are lazy. We live in
Now
a
we're eating
lazy
that right
society.
now with everything, right? The cashless retail stores. I was at a gas station the other day and there's a little robot vacuuming, or sorry, do mopping, things
Yeah, I've seen
from
those. I've seen those.
iRobots, and we've done videos on that too. And just like, yeah, it's going to 10x from here. But people want their time back, which isn't a bad thing either, to be honest with you. Like, that's why the maid industry is so big, nanny industry is so big, is getting their time back, which is the real commodity on this planet. I feel like more people know that, and I think that. Feel like, even as a guy who likes money, I don't need $1 billion. I'm okay. I'd rather get my time back and let the Elon's.
Time's important.
That's all it is, man. You live in this life for a very short period of time, so enjoy with the people you love. But it's important to make money. You just don't need billions of dollars worth it. And like, this is coming from a guy who loves capitalism, love business, love money, but I don't know, man. Just at the end of the day, I'd rather take my time, with my family and my friends.
Has there been any companies that have caught your eye in
No,
this
man.
past
To
year?
honest, to be straight with you, the only thing I'm bullish in right now, based on the administration, is strictly crypto, which is crazy for me to say. I think coming in, he said he's going to be the crypto president. That's a telltale sign. Buy it. If anything, I'm bullish on Bitcoin, and I think that's kind of my play while this administration's in play. And I'm looking at stocks every single day, watching them, and I see the ROIs and the returns on these things, but it's been I've been just strictly just watching Bitcoin at this moment. We'll see where this.
Yeah, I've never been against just doing a singular investment. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if you have a strong momentum behind it, which crypto clearly does. It's the only thing that scares me with the crypto stuff is, and it shouldn't when you think about it in terms of the price of crypto, because if you have treasury companies buying crypto, that's to support the price. So I just think it's more so those crypto treasury companies will be in trouble, but the price of Bitcoin, wow.
I just think, are they able to survive, the crypto? I think it's my own personal opinion. I'll take this as any financial advice, but I see crypto exploding, but then I see it getting hammered to the next level.
It hasn't had a crypto winter in a while.
Yeah, we had it during that whole Sam Bankman-Fried where I think crypto went from 74 to 16,000 somewhere around there, right? And it stayed there for a little while, and we've seen these happen, but I don't think you're going to get the gains like we used to, the 1,600%, the 400%.
No.
I think it's now kind of taped off unless a country does come in and end up buying, 100,000, 200,000 worth of Bitcoin all of a sudden, and does jump on that reserve fund, which, the U.S. has a lot of legislation, and Congress has to pass a lot of laws for them to do. So, but who knows with the Saudis, who knows with Abu Dhabi, who knows with Qatar, who knows with China, who knows if a country's already doing it, which could be a huge thing right now too. Well, guys, we're just going to end this podcast right now. And first off, sorry for taking out so much of your time, but if you guys will listen to this whole thing, we really appreciate it. If you love the markets and you love to be part of a great community and want to learn more about the markets and our research, please join Stock Charts at www.stockchartsresearch.com. Make sure you follow us on our socials because we've been busting our ass and some of our socials haven't been growing as we expected. And we'll talk next week. And I'd love to hear your feedback. You could shit on us on the comments and we won't mind. And I'd love to hear your feedback and take it from there. JR, thanks once again. And we'll go
No problem.
soon, yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Awesome. Take care, guys.